So here we are in Max, and today's video is going to be about back panel rendering. So the first process that my usual process is that I will turn on all of the computers and log on to the Windows using the remote desktop server. Now I am going to open up the scene. This is Evermotion Arc Model interior scene, and I am going to keep the system setting because this is not correct. This is one of their old scenes because the gamma settings is pretty much messed up. You can see that the output file gamma is 1.0 and that is not the desired result that we want. So I am going to keep the system gamma. My system gamma is 2.2 input and output, and I'm going to click on OK, and the scene has been set up with the previous version of V-Ray. So I am going to not to update the changes, and we have some missing external texture file error as well. I am going to click on continue, and now the scene has been opened. So the first process should be setting up our textures. So now the first thing that I am going to do is by pressing Shift T and going to the asset tracking dialog box and select all of the textures, and to give the network path to these textures, you first need to navigate to the shared folder, and this is the project folder that we want to share. So by right clicking and going to properties, and I am going to share and click on advanced share and share this folder. So and give permission to all users and click OK and click OK. When you do share the project folder that you want to be doing rendering by using back burner, you have to make sure that you use folder organization because organizing your folder is very crucial in this process because I did copy all of the textures to my scene assets and images folder, and you can see that I am using the default project management structure that 3ds Max uses. So it is very convenient for me to use this directory structure and be organized. So after you have done collecting and pasting all of your textures to your scene assets images, you can go to the asset tracking dialog box and you can just click and shift click to select all of the textures that are missing and right click set path. And then what you want to be doing is going to the network location of your computer. In my case, I have assigned the IP and I have configured the network setup. If you are interested, you can go back and look at all of my videos about configuring network setup hardware wise and software wise. I have done both, and I will probably mention the link in the description as well. So I am going to press the Windows R key to go to the run menu and click on this. This is the IP address that I have set up for my main machine, which is this machine, and I am going to click on yes, and this is the folder that I have shared right now, and I am going to click on it and navigate to the scene assets images folder and right click, copy this path, and I am going to paste this path. Remember, this is the network path. Why we are assigning the network path to the textures? Because we don't want any computer to give missing textures error when we do network or back burner rendering or distributed rendering. Remember, in my other videos I have told you that I am not a big fan of the Corona and V-Ray sending assets to the computers, although they can do it very effectively these days, but it takes time to send all of the assets, and remember that includes the max file as well. So if the file sizes are very big, every time you press render you have to send assets to that computer, and if you have 10 of these machines, then the distributed rendering would be slower, and in my opinion that kills the purpose of the distributed rendering or network rendering or batch rendering, because we want them to be fast. So what we have done instead is create this network of computers, and they are connected to each other, so they can access the folder of the project, so that the assets or IE slides or the reference files or proxy files, they can be easily accessed. So the next thing that you want to be doing is setting up your output path, and which should be saved to a network location as well. If I go to the common and save, I am going to go to this folder and choose the render output folder, and remember, this is the D location. You do not want to be copying from this path, because this is the path for this local computer, and only this computer can access this path, not all of the other machines that we are going to set up. So I am going to copy this path which is the IP address of this location and the shared folder and render output, and click on this path and copy this path and click on paste and hit save. Then animation test, and I am going to just save it as a JPEG, but I prefer the EXR format over all of the formats because it has really wide range of color capacity. I am going to go to my Windows Start menu, and I did made shortcuts of these monitor, manager, and server. The back button has these three main core programs, and the first thing you want to be clicking on is the manager, because the manager manages jobs, as the name suggests. And when we click on it, and I am going to show you the process on, I think so, on this machine, which will be easier because it is going to ask for some questions. So these are the port numbers. If you have some errors, you want to be adding these port numbers to your Windows firewall. And how to add port numbers, I did set up the V-Ray distributed rendering, so the process you can watch it on that video. I did configure the firewall to add the port numbers. So you want to be just click on these default settings and click on OK. I am going to do cancel because I want to run the manager on my control shutdown. because you cannot have 2 or 3 managers, it would be confusing. So I am going to run the manager on this machine. So the next thing that you want to be doing is, like opening up the monitor. The monitor can connect to the manager. So in my case, it is already been connected. I am going to just disconnect and I am going to hit connect once again. It is going to automatically find the manager, and there you can see that the new client have been added. So I am going to go to this machine and click on the server, which is the third application of the Backburner. And when you click the server exe on the remote desktop, remember this is the remote machine that will be accepting the network job. So when you click on the server, this Backburner server, this setting just popped up. So you want to be naming the computer name or the IP address. I am going to use the IP address because I found out that if you use the IP address, it is far more efficient than using the name of the computer. So this is the name or the IP address of the local computer. So you can see this is the manager, and what you want to be doing up is like putting up the network IP address for the main machine, which is .0.101. This is the IP address that I have assigned for my main computer, and if you have been following along with my other videos, you can see what I am talking about. By the way, I will try to give the link in the description how to use the IP address set up the computers. And in this area you want to be using the server IP address, so which is you can see this 192.168.0.105 and 105. I named this computer Luna, and I am using the naming convention from Dota 2. Everything else should remain default, and I am going to press on OK. This message just popped up, and remember, you want to be allowing this application to pass through your firewall so that it can communicate with other computers on the network. So when you press the allowed button, you can see that registration has been accepted, and if I move to this Backburner, you can see that I have Luna and idle and current job nothing, and this is the message. And this is the Backburner server exe running on this machine. I am going to press minimize, and I am going to do this process on all of the other machines. So let me go to the Backburner and click on the server once again, and remember, this process should be familiar by now. Now I am going to enter the IP address of this computer, and remember the IP address for the manager, and in the description I am going to put the name of this computer, which is Invoker, and hit OK. And remember, it is going to ask for the firewall as well. You can see that nothing has appeared. As soon as I allow the access, you will see that Invoker will appear on there. There you go. Invoker has appeared on the Backburner monitor queue. Next, I am going to go on and maybe some fast forward process this. By now you understand how this works. So now you can see that all of the computers have appeared in the monitor, so they can receive any job that will be assigned through the Backburner manager. So now that all of the servers are running, I am going to click on the server on this machine as well, because I want to be using this machine as well to do the network rendering job. And in this case, I am going to use the same IP address for the machine and the manager as well, and allow the access. Now you can see that this computer has popped up in the network as well. So the next thing would be to move to 3ds Max, and I am using this on V-Ray. You can use Corona, Arnold, or any GPU render that you want. The process is the same. Let me just switch to Corona. In Corona, you want to be assigning a noise level limit or a pass limit, because if you do not assign a noise level or pass level limit, it is going to render for infinity for just one frame for the entire duration, and you have to cancel the animation job and then have these numbers according to your scene needs. Now the next thing that you need to do is like set up your render elements, and when you do so, you select your render elements. In my case, I add these render elements after I have done saving this on here, which is why it is showing the network path for this location. Both of these render elements. You can use the V-Ray raw image file format, and you can use these separate render elements. Maybe for this demonstration sake, I will try to use this and not use this render output. And I am going to click on this and choose the EXR format, and I have to make sure that I am saving this at a network location, so when the computers have done rendering a frame, they need to save it to a location that they can access. Remember these computers that we have added. So now here is the network location output, and I am going to click on the render output path, copy it and paste it over here, and click on the save to move it to the network location, and I am going to give it a name. And you can use the 32-bit output format, but in this case I am not going to do this, and I am going to maybe click on the separate render elements, and I am going to click on this separate render folder because I do not like the render elements in the same directory, and give it a network path as well. And for this demonstration sake, I am going to use the OpenEXR format as well, and I am going to use 16-bit half float, which is fine. So I am going to go to this target mode drop down, and I am going to click on this, and we are going to click on this submit to network render. And because we did not save the path on on the standard 3ds Max, it is and we have to have some sort of animation to, like just a simple fly through animation, so that we can see that the camera is moving. So now that this has been done, and I am going to quickly just change some various settings. Because the settings of the various scene has been outdated so much, and we will be using this bucket sampler because this is best for uh, network rendering, batch rendering, and anything else. The progressive sampler is, in my case, in my opinion, is not mature and as the bucket sampler. So let me just lower the frame size. So once again, now I am going to submit to network rendering and click on yes. This window just popped up, and this job name refers to the name of the scene file that you have saved. You can change this. I am going to manually type in the address. Back burner, remember, it can automatically find as well, but I am going to just type in the 0.0.01 address, and you can use the critical, and you can use the notification as well, and you can use the include path and everything else. This checkbox include paths just ensures that the project should be set on the default directory structure, but I tend to just leave this off, because if you did not set up your textures the proper way, this should not be a problem. The alternate path, you can just use a global textures folder, like you can use all of your textures on one folder, and you can use this path. If a texture becomes miss, it is going to use this alternate path to find the texture. I'm going to just click on connect, and I am going to click on submit. By the way, errors do pop up. The first error that popped up, it's not an error, well, it's a mistake. When we press submit to render and only one computer is doing the rendering job, you can see that this computer is doing the rendering job. And remember, this is the animation, and we forgot to turn on the active time segment, like how to what frames to render. So in this case, I will just try to render the 30 frames or maybe 60 frames, and click on here, and then I will go back to the monitor and click on this and delete this job, and click on yes, and then you can see that the job that was running has been cancelled. And let me just try to render this again, submit to network rendering, and click on yes, and once again click on connect and enable notification critical, and you want to be using you want to be using all servers. You can use some selected servers as well, but I am going to use all servers and click on the submit scene once again. So it is going to save the scene, and if we go back to the monitor, you can see that all of the computers have turned green, the servers, showing the status that they are busy and current job is the name of the job that we have sent. And if we have some errors popping up, they will show up here. And in the meanwhile the job is starting, I will go into the edit job, and you can see the name and the job description and the frame numbers like 0 to 60 and what is the width and the camera name and the input output gamma and render elements. And in here you can see the output path that we have set up for the render elements and the alternate project path. Remember, this was the project path that I was talking about. If you set the alternate project path to a network location as well, which is accessible by all computers, so they can access the textures from that way, but I am using the asset tracking and assign the textures the proper way. So my computers are starting to sound that they have been start rendering, and I am going to check them. And remember, if a computer gives an error, just shut down the back burner server and relaunch it, so it will restart the job. And you can see the job summary over here and task summary, like what frame is being rendered by what computer, and job detail as well, and errors. So this is pretty much a very easy solution, and for like home network rendering, if you do not want to use a render farm to do like simple animations, you can still use the render farm, because now in these days they are quite cheap. But I like to use test renders on my local machines or servers. So when I submit the job to the network render, I'm making sure that it is rendering the right animation and there is no errors popping up or something like that. And let me just cycle through all of the machines. So now you can see that the computers are rendering and the frames are updating. So when the frames the computers have done rendering, they will all show up here. And I forgot to when I did resubmitted the job, and I forgot to separate the render elements in their own respective folder. So you can see these 4 frames have been rendered. Now I just open up these 2 frames and you can see that the EXR have been opened in After Effects, and we can see that the animation is being indeed rendered, and we have successfully done rendering using the Autodesk back burner render manager, and to utilize all of the computers, and pretty much no errors have been popping up. So well, subscribe, and thank you, like and share this video.